Welcome to Troubleshooting Innovation, a commercial baking podcast sponsored by Reading Bakery Systems, your trusted partner for innovative bakery and snack solutions, helping you bake for a better tomorrow with the most advanced sustainable baking solutions on the market. This season, I'm speaking with Darlene Nicosia, CEO of Hearthside Food Solutions, and we are talking about operations, culture, and innovation behind the curtain of co-manufacturing. In this final episode, we unpack unique leadership perspectives. Hi, Darlene. Thanks for joining me for this last episode.
Hi, Joni. Great to see you.
Okay, I just have to tell you that I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversations. I mentioned it sort of off the air, but I think that you have a really great combination of deep technical knowledge and expertise, and you are an incredible conversationalist. So thank you so much for taking this time with me. It's been a joy.
Joni, it's been awesome.
So many of our conversations inevitably harken back on how you've merged the worlds of brands and contract manufacturing. But I want to look at a little different perspective. This week, I want to talk about how you've managed to merge the world of engineering and the world of leadership. How hard is it to reconcile what, to me, seems to be like two totally different styles of thinking?
You know, it's really interesting. You know, on the one hand, engineering is so focused on process discipline and logic, while great leadership is about demonstrating empathy and creating followership. You know, and I think about it that way, but I also say, well, on the other hand, the only successful engineers I know have been amazing at active listening, strong vision, goal setting, communication, learning by trial and error, which obviously requires patience and persistence, and being able to collaborate and using feedback to get better. So, you know, when I think about all these traits, they're also the same traits that essentially good leaders have. And so I really feel like they come together very nicely.
So, from my perspective or my experience, engineers sometimes have this tendency to really look at things in a very technical way, and they're checking off each list and looking at, is this technically accurate? And when I look at leadership trajectories, one of the biggest challenges they say that new leaders face pertains to their ability to let go of task-oriented duties. So hopefully you kind of see the path that I'm heading down here. So you have experience in engineering. So when you look at those sort of technical and task-oriented things, how have you learned how to let go of those things as you've grown in leadership in your career?
It's hard. And sometimes I have to pull myself out of the weeds. And there's sometimes I don't. And then my team will politely pull me out of the weeds. I have always been extremely analytical. And so I like to be grounded in the context. I think even better if a team brings me a proposal and they show me the journey they went on, right? So they maybe talk about the process and the options they considered. Of course, they share the data to support whatever they're thinking, and then how they reach their conclusions. I have a really easy time saying, you guys got this. I totally support the way that you're going about your thinking and how you're reaching a conclusion, and I have your back. But as a leader, there's sometimes when I'm ultimately accountable for our business and there are important decisions to be had. And then I do want to get grounded in the facts. And so sometimes I might get deeper into the weeds. Or if I have concern that somebody hasn't gone through a proper process, they haven't really used data to support the decisions that they're driving. I do see at times people will take past history as fact, and you know the world has changed. So in those circumstances, I may ask for more supporting data. Hey, I hear what you're telling me. Can you show me the data? Help me understand what supports, you know, your point of view on this. And so then I might get a bit closer to it. But I think all leaders have to ask themselves, is this something that I should be delegating and having others do? Or is this something that uniquely requires my skill set, my time? And when I kind of ask myself those questions and I say, yeah, it requires my skill set, this is an important decision, it's easy to try and figure out where I need to play and where my team plays.
Do you think that's an innate skill, or do you think that that is something that someone who has a more technical background has to sort of learn how to do? Like, when do you draw on that, and when do you know when to let it go?
Is a really great question. And I would probably tell you that it's more learned. And it is probably more of a challenge around control. And how do you empower people and give them the ability to make decisions? One of the things that I use in our business today is agile for teamworks and how to solve problems. And I think we might have talked about this in episode one, but what I love about agile is the fact that it brings diverse thinking together to drive and solve problems, and it gets leadership out of your way. It really empowers a team to make decisions. If people don't feel empowered that they're able to have their own thumbprint on a business, it really does start to impact their long-term ability to excel in their role, the long-term impact that they can have, and you really don't get the exponential benefit of the people that you have around you. So I think I had to learn early on how to be a good delegator, how to trust my teams, how to create an environment that allowed them to feel accountable and have responsibility to make decisions. And I think the other thing that's really important in that process is defining principles so that when people reach a fork in the road, they can use the principles you shared to make those decisions.
It's like you're reading my mind, because I literally was going to ask you, like, how do you know the difference between technical expertise and a need for control? I love that you mentioned control, because that I feel like there's a fine line there.
Yeah, I mean, again, control and accountability are not the same thing. In my mind, accountability is what is important, and I try to govern by in the business and making sure that if I empower you to go off and solve a problem and make a decision, then I've got to hold you accountable for that decision at the same time. But I do, again, think that people have to feel like they are able to kind of use their skills to their greatest capability. And if you control all the decisions they make, then they're just a task manager. And that's not what most people want to do when they come to work. They really want to give their best, make decisions, and change the business for the better.
I was going to ask you, the question I had written down was, does it get harder to make that distinction the closer you get to the C-suite? But after hearing you talk, I feel like the answer, the statement, is that knowing how to differentiate that is the mark of someone who's heading for the C-suite. You have to have that understanding to get to that level. And if you can't, you're probably not suited for that high level leadership.
Yeah. I think that I had the benefit of being surrounded by a number of good coaches and mentors. And I do remember at one point in time, somebody was talking to me about time management. I just felt like I never had time to do all the things that I had to do. And they said, well, do you have to do all those things? It's a very logical question. And they kind of took me on this talk track of I have to think about what really warrants my time and what are the things that really others can make the decisions on. And once you kind of start to go through that logic, you realize you get time back because you trust and empower the teams that you have. And that's something that actually does come with time.
Okay. All right. So I think there are benefits to having that sort of technical expertise. So, from an operational leadership standpoint, what are those benefits, and how has your technical experience positively impacted your leadership style?
Yeah, I would tell you, it goes back to that idea of being very process disciplined. Just this whole idea of having to have data and information to make decisions. There are certainly times when my intuition will come into play, and you'll have information, maybe not all that you want, and you have to make a decision. And there are certainly times that I have to go on experience and that intuition, but more so than ever, I go back to this point I made earlier, making sure that you have a disciplined process that's grounded in fact, that makes sure that you're weighing your options and then supporting a conclusion or a recommendation for how you proceed. And along the way, making sure that you have taken input from others or that you've collaborated with them along the way, because I really highly value this idea of collaborative thinking. Because people who can build upon a single idea and make it even better and even better and even better over time is really, I think, the way to get the best solutions possible. And so part of my leadership style is a highly collaborative leadership style. I ultimately will call the ball when I need to, but I do try to bring my leaders in, make sure that I'm getting a diverse point of view, and then drive a decision forward. And I think a lot of that does come from that engineering process discipline background that I had, both through formal training and then informal experience working in such, technical areas.
Yeah. And again, people are like, well, they're an engineer. Engineers don't lead companies. They get in the trenches and do the work. But do you think that this engineer's mindset is like a secret weapon in the boardroom?
Well, boardrooms are interesting places. And I would probably say the biggest skill set that I've got to use in a boardroom is really this whole idea of active listening. There are so many voices going on, right? There are different points of view and perspectives from the different board members. They're incredibly successful leaders. They have all kinds of insight, industry experience, both in our industry and outside of our industry. And harnessing their points of view is incredibly important, in the time that I get with them. I would say more than anything, that engineering mindset probably helps more with our customers in trying to define our value proposition and making sure that they understand that we bring an incredible technical expertise to what we do, that we're passionate about their brands, but more passionate about quality and process, and really making sure that we care for their business the way as if it was our own.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then that expertise becomes almost a selling point. This episode is brought to you by Reading Bakery Systems, your trusted partner for innovative bakery and snack solutions. For more than 130 years, RBS has driven the continuous improvement of bakery systems to help make their customers successful. Passion for innovation, coupled with intelligent designs and a research-based approach, make RBS the only partner you'll need to ensure your product's success. Reading Bakery Systems. Successful snacks start here. Learn more at readingbakery.com. Okay, I'm going to shift gears. We've talked about bringing your experience from Coca-Cola into the world of co-manufacturing. We've talked about bringing an engineering background into the world of leadership. But one thing that we haven't touched on that I'm curious about is, maybe it's an elephant in the room, but engineering and manufacturing are two very male-dominated disciplines. You are incredibly approachable. You've got this athleticism mindset that you bring to everything you do. What is it like to achieve the success that you have, dare I say, perhaps despite your gender?
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about sports, and it's such a huge part of my background. I still remember my very first formal team I played on was the Glen Ellen boys baseball team, GEBB.
Wow.
And myself and my friend Susie were the first two girls to go and sign up. They didn't have softball back then. And I had always played with my neighbors. When you're a kid, you're not really like technically like going, oh, they're boys and they're girls and whatever. I just was always playing sports, and I was a tag along with my older brother as well. So it was the environment that I was in, and I didn't know any better but to pick up a ball and shoot, or in this case, a ball and throw. I just played with everybody that was around doing the things that I enjoyed. And so I would tell you there's a part of me that doesn't have this gender lens. I found myself always around those environments and never giving it a second thought, quite frankly. When I got into work, I was the first female supervisor in the plant that I worked at Frito-Lay. Everybody around me was so supportive. They were great mentors and coaches. By the way, all men, because I was the first female supervisor out there. And again, I felt like it was such a welcoming environment for me. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage from the employees, the managers, everybody around. And maybe back then I was a bit naive, but as I kind of progressed in my career, I'd say that it wasn't always that way. And there were certainly times in my career where I was the only female in the room. I was certainly Coca-Cola's first female chief procurement officer in an environment where, there were times when I was left out of stuff, probably because of my gender. And it was tough. And I can remember a situation that happened after an international meeting that I went to, and I was excluded from the dinner. I had just been promoted into a big role. I was leading the meeting. The meeting concluded, and the men that I was with decided to go to dinner, and they didn't include me. And I called my coach and mentor, who was also the predecessor of this team. I said, I'm really crushed by this. And he said, don't have a crisis of confidence. You represent change, and you represent a threat to the men that have biases. And just remember at the same time, most men will be your strongest of advocates. And he is right. My strongest of advocates were always men in my career. And so, look, there are pockets in this world that still have the opportunity to drive change. But I do feel like the business world has matured and has changed so much. There are so many programs to accelerate the pipeline of diverse talent. I'm certainly spending quite a bit of my time trying to do that myself as I coach and mentor so many diverse individuals in the workplace. And it's important because everybody needs a great, strong coach and advocate, just like I did in that moment, and certainly feel like I'm stronger because of it. And I maintain my confidence in a really, really tough situation.
Okay, your baseball experience, I'm going to throw you a curveball because you said something that kind of triggered a thought for me. I have seen a lot of panels and discussions that ask the question, can a man be a good mentor to a woman in coaching her and bringing her up? And the answer is, of course, yes. I haven't heard anyone ask. So I'm curious, when you say that you're mentoring and coaching others, are women good mentors to men? Do men look up to women as a coach and a mentor? Are you seeing that?
Well, I'm going to have to answer it from where I sit. Probably best asked of a man who's been mentored by a woman. What I can tell you is the ability to demonstrate empathy, because most of the probably most challenging coaching events occur around some sort of crisis or a setback in someone's career or in a situation. And the ability to say, I hear you, I understand your emotion and how you feel is valid, and how to see a way forward to get back up and to keep going is so incredibly important. Because just as that mentor did for me, confidence can be destroyed in a moment. Sometimes it takes a career to build. And being able to feel that empathy and that support in someone who believes in you goes a long way to helping you quickly get back on your feet and get up and take another swing at the plate.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point because nobody comes to a mentor and says, things are going great. What should I do?
Well, like I said, sometimes that does happen. And we're happy for folks. But again, if you're really trying to accelerate learning and really help somebody, it typically does come in those moments of crisis.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, still reflecting on your career in those moments, good and bad, that you have seen success and overcome challenges, how have you seen gender roles evolve in food and beverage manufacturing? Have you seen change over the course of your career?
I absolutely have. Some of it we have had to do through really focusing on creating opportunity. I know earlier in my career, we were opening up plant in Costa Rica, just to give you an example. And we had to go through a process of creating a program that was in the community to teach people how to drive forklifts so that we could have a gender balanced manufacturing environment. We were really struggling to get material handlers and people into the facility that had the skills we needed. They were predominantly filled by men, and we wanted to really achieve this goal of having a gender parity kind of environment in our manufacturing facility. So we took the effort to go into the community and train people. And sometimes it takes efforts like that to really create change. And I think there has been a huge change in how people view their careers in the manufacturing environment. I think we have to re-engage post-COVID, whether it's the gig economy or whatever else. There were reasons that people walked away from great American manufacturing jobs, and we have to find a way to re-engage them back into this workforce. And I think part of it is re-engaging in the community. Part of it is our own responsibility to create career pathing so that people can come into these roles and see a way to build their skill sets, to grow in their roles, and to have really a lifelong engagement in this type of setting. And if they choose to exit, we've built upon their skill set so that they can go and do other things. And there is this just huge opportunity for us to think about how we re-engage in the communities and attract both male and female talent. I think there's more flexibility that still needs to be built into manufacturing. So many plants today have fixed shifts that people have to work. And I aspire to see the day that Hearthside can offer more dynamic shift building, where people can nominate the hours they want to work, and we have a way and a path to give them those hours and provide more flexibility so they can care for their own children or the elderly or do whatever they can. It's more typical that it's the female that has to care for children. And with the inflexibility of the way we handle our manufacturing shift operations, it makes it really hard. So there's more to be done here. I'd love to be a leader of change in that space, and hopefully over time we'll get there. But there's more that can be done to offer flexibility for, quite frankly, everyone, so that American manufacturing jobs are more attractive.
That's just more of an observation than anything. Like, as a working mother, the schedules are one thing, but there are so many other external factors that are working against it. Childcare is really, really hard to access, even for upper middle class working women, let alone, and then it's exponentially harder for the ones who are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, again, it's just like so many factors. And so I'm really just sort of thinking out loud based on what you said. I mean, wouldn't it be great if manufacturing could be sort of the centrifuge of change? Like, if it starts with flexible scheduling, maybe other things can fall into place.
Well, look, I love your idea. I also think about technology as this huge enabler. Technology is being used in ways that are even related to more physical jobs, where there are devices that allow you to lift 3 times your normal strength. And so you think about how to engage all these different factors, whether it's people with disabilities, women in the workplace that have all kinds of other demands on their time. I think technology could be a big unlock to create change.
You're right. And I try to use my position as media to project that technology and automation isn't designed to eliminate jobs, but is designed to help people do jobs that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do, as well as accommodate for a dwindling headcount as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So you pretty much answered my last question before I had a chance to ask it, because we talked last week about runway and thinking about, like, from your perspective and how you've grown in your career, what's the runway look like for contract manufacturing or for food manufacturing in general for people to come into this industry and to rise up in their careers and create a trajectory for themselves?
Well, I think the very first thing is recruiting. We have to be aggressive in trying to recruit more women into the industry. And I think if they had the awareness of the great career opportunities within contract manufacturing, we would absolutely just simply change the numbers and bring more women in. But having said that, I also think, again, as the industry has evolved, there are certainly more women coming in at entry levels. And obviously, with the training and development that we've been doing, we're looking forward to this pipeline of female talent that's coming through in our supervisory level. And we'd love to see more and more women in our manufacturing leadership positions. Today, one of our key platforms is led by a female. We have 2 COOs in our company. and one of them is a female. She's a fantastic talent. So I would say Hearthside is very fortunate to have a stacked team as it relates to our female leadership across the company.
Yes, absolutely. I know that. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to spotlight that for the company in the coming months, that you guys are stacked. And I love that. Again, such a traditional industry, and engineering and manufacturing being male dominated, and co-manufacturing being so behind the scenes for so long. It's really exciting to see what Hearthside is doing to just really boldly forge ahead and make change and be successful at it.
I love it. Well, I know the women that you're going to be talking with. I think you're going to find them fascinating with tremendous careers of their own.
I love it. Okay, well, listen, Darlene, that really wraps up this episode and this season. I just again want to extend my most sincere thanks for you taking time over these 5 weeks to share your thought leadership in so many aspects of contract manufacturing. We talked a lot about some really important topics, and I appreciate your time and your insight.
Well, thank you so much, Joni. It's been great getting a chance to talk to you over these past 5 weeks. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Troubleshooting Innovation. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Reading Bakery Systems. For more information on RBS and their industry-leading sustainable baking solutions, visit readingbakery.com.